Welcome to our Giants Draft Reaction Show presented by Crestron. John Schmeelk, once again joined by my compatriots, Paul Dottino and Shaun O'Hara. We're going to take your calls here, guys, at 201-939-4513. We're going to go for 1 hour. That's what the league allows. The Giants are 6 picks away, though the Ravens pick is in. I think the league's a little behind here. I think they're about at least two picks behind in terms of picks being in and them announcing the selection.
They're commercial considerations.
Got to pay those sponsors.
Well, you also hope they have a lot of people coming up and they're doing emotional presentations and such. So that's taking up some extra time. So we're probably, I'd say, around 20 minutes or so away from the Giants selection, I say, give or take. We'll have that selection for you here. We'll tell you who the Giants take. We will react to it. We'll have Bob Papa join us after the pick, and then we will take your calls. And if you want to get them before the pick, too, to tell us who you think the Giants should pick, we can do that as well at 201-939-4513. All right. So we haven't had that many big surprises here in round number 2. I'll go through a couple of them. I'm not going to list all the picks because I'm sure you're tracking this on your own, folks. Mike Green is still on the board, the edge rusher from Marshall, who has some off-the-field legal issues from the past. But I think he's a first-round type player in terms of talent, but he's still on the board. Tyler Shook went to the Saints. Shedeur Sanders still on the board. Arante Ursary went. A couple running backs are off the board. Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Junkins. Luther Burden, Jaden Higgins, Jack Best, Trey Harris all off the board at wide receiver. Defensive tackle, just Tyleik Williams and TJ Sanders. No one else off the board yet at that spot. Will Johnson and Benjamin Morrison, the two banged-up cornerbacks, they are off the board at that position. No safeties have gone off the board yet today. And 3 tight ends, I should have mentioned. Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, and Terrence Ferguson are off the board at that spot. Offensive line, Ozzie Trapolo off the board. Jonas Sevenaya off the board. He's a guard. Tate Ratledge just got taken. And Anthony Belton, the offensive tackle from NC State, is off the board along with Ariante Ursary. So those are the major guys that are off the board. Let's kind of start here with you first, Paul.
Yeah.
What are some of the spots and players that you're keeping an eye on here heading in to pick number 65? Remember, the Giants only have one selection today. They selected Abdul Qadir, 3rd overall, but then used pick 99 and 34 to move up to pick 25 to select Jackson Dart. So, Paul, who are you looking at here for the Giants' lone pick on day 3 at pick number 65, and what positions?
Well, I think the positions for me would be defensive tackle. It would also be offensive line, and it would also be running back. Those would be the 3 spots that I would be looking for the best player available and see how high the value is. I'll give you one guy at each position, John. How about we do that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Joshua Farmer, Florida State, defensive tackle. I think there's a legit shot he might be there at 65. I think Alexander's going to be gone before that, so I'm going to go Farmer.
Well, we'll see. There's not that many picks left, and a defensive tackle has not gone since pick 43 when Alfred Collins went. Him and TJ Sanders are the 2 defensive tackles off the board.
It is interesting.
Yeah, it was a rush on edge rushers, but not really the interior guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so I would be looking at Scatabo from Arizona State, Cameron Scatabo, if he could get there at 65. Again, I'd be surprised, but hey, you never know. That would be very exciting for me. And then on the offensive line, Marcus Maboe out of Purdue is probably the guy right now who I think could potentially be at 65. And he's got some swing guard tackle versatility, and I think he would be a guy that might be interested for me there.
All right, I'll give you one name at each position, too, and then, Shaun, you can kind of give what positions you're keeping an eye on here.
Okay.
You don't have to give names. You can just give spots if you want. I'll give one offensive lineman. I think Wyatt Millam would be the next best guy on the board for me. He played tackle at college. I think he's more of a guard in the NFL, but he's a good player. He's a guy that I think you can consider at guard. At running back, you mentioned Cam Scatabo. I'll bring up Caleb Johnson and Damian Martinez and Dylan Sampson. Those are my next 3 running backs. I think they're all a little bit different, to be totally honest with you, in terms of play style. Yeah. But I think they're all good players. And then the other position you had was defensive tackle. You mentioned Darius Alexander. Shamar Turner is the other guy I'll throw out there. A defensive tackle who's very talented. I think he's a guy that I would look at here if you're looking for more of an upfield guy. If you're looking for more of a plugger type, I think you're looking at the C.J. West, Jordan Phillips group for the next plugger type. Or if you like Jamari Caldwell a lot, the defensive tackle of Oregon.
Caldwell's a big man.
He's a large fellow. That's another guy you could look at that spot. If you look at a wide receiver, my man Jalen Knowles still on the board, baby. I'm a huge fan of his. If he's still around, I'd be tempted to take a look at him. Shaun, What are your big needs here and things you're focusing on for the Giants?
Well, let's start off with where you ended with the receiver. Noel, he's a burner, right? I think he ran like a 4.3.
Yep.
So he's got some wheels, 5'10", 200 pounds. So I definitely think the Giants, look, offensively, we need points. So we need some offensive firepower. Yes, Jackson Dart was a great draft pick for us last night, but he's probably not going to see the field in the first half of the season if things go, as well as everybody hopes they do. But I definitely think receiver. You need some younger guys. You need somebody to pair with Malik Neighbors, and anytime you have a guy with that kind of world class speed, you'll find a way to get him out on the field and find a way to get him involved in the offense. I think the other guy that I was looking at, Kyle Williams, is still out there. I like Besh. We were talking about Besh before, but he just went. Kyle Williams is a guy that's out there as well. Washington State, he was part of that air raid offense. That could be another possible fit. I think the running back thing, we all talked about it earlier. I think the Giants would like to add another running back. And Caleb Johnson from Iowa is still out there. I think he's a pretty physical guy, physical runner, so that could be a good fit. I'm never going to say no to an O-lineman. You guys mentioned offensive line. I've already thrown it out a couple of times in the cafeteria over there. I'm like, hey, wow, we got a guy to get after the quarterback. We got a quarterback. How about somebody to protect the quarterback?
Your guy Tate Rowledge and Pearson's guy Tate Rowledge both off the board, though. The mullet stash combination is no longer a potential selection here.
Yeah, Tate's down, and you know what? Tate physical dude. He's a self-proclaimed dirtbag, so right out of the gate, I love him. But he was a little banged up as well.
I think he was actually an extra on Eastbound and Down.
Was he really?
No, he wasn't. He might as well have been, though.
Be
right?
a lot cooler if he did.
I never actually watched Eastbound and Down. I just know I never actually did watch it.
I think that's something you should keep to yourself. You just aired yourself out.
Sean, I have a lot of stuff going on. I have many shows that I want to watch.
I've seen you
watch
3 things at once.
How is that possible? No, I haven't.
You're a multitasking king.
I have
you can find time.
The problem is that I actually like to focus in on like a show. So if I'm gonna do one thing, that's what I'll do.
It's great.
Anyway,
it's great.
I heard it's a funny show.
It is a good show.
He annoys me a little bit though. The actor, what's his name?
No, who? Kenny Powers?
Yeah, he's a little annoying. Anyway,
Danny
You've
McBride.
Changed.
Yeah, Danny McBride.
Danny McBride. Yeah,
he's a little annoying.
He's awesome. Not into the whole conditioning thing.
Not into the whole conditioning thing.
All right, back to the task.
Paul, do you have any idea what we're talking about?
No.
I love that. You haven't watched it, Paul. It's not even on his hemisphere.
No, it is not.
All right.
They canceled Blue Bloods. That's all I need to know.
I'm a lone wolf. Blue Bloods. Wow. You're watching TV with my dad.
I was literally about to say if it's not on CBS at 9 o'clock, Paul's not watching it. He literally named the show that's on CBS at 9 o'clock.
That's awesome. Blue Bloods is a great show.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
I have great respect for officers of law.
Is Tom Selleck, is he available for the draft?
Okay, so I have to give the last 2 picks here. Because, of course, the Baltimore Ravens picked the last guy with a first-round grade on by Borden, Mike Green. Yeah. And, he's going to go to Baltimore. He's not going to get into any trouble. He's going to be a saint, and he's not going to have any issues, and he's going to have like 18 sacks for the Ravens. Because that's what happens with players the Ravens draft. Yeah. And then my guy...
Yeah, you like
R.J. Harvey. I had a second-round grade on him, and no one else really did, and I thought I was out on a limb. And then the Broncos go pick him at 60. He is fast. He's elusive. He's a lot of fun. Sean Payne is going to have a ton of fun with R.J. Harvey.
What did they do with Alvin Kamara for all those years?
Well, that's what they're going to do with R.J. Harvey.
Yeah.
Man, that is a good pick. Ugh. That annoys me. Just because it's such a good fit, and I wish. Anyway, go ahead. I forgot what we were talking
about offensive linemen, and we got distracted by Eastbound and Down.
No, that was my fault.
Miles Frazier was another guy that's out there.
Yeah.
I like Frazier, but I think for the next round.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing with the Giants is they need a guard, and I think they also need a tackle. So, but you're only going to probably take one. I don't know if they can draft one of each. So do you get a guy that played tackle and can also play guard, or a guy that played guard and can also swing out and play tackle?
Hey, Gary Clark announcing the pick for the Commanders. Excellent wide receiver from the 80s and 90s. You can make an argument he should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way, if you look at his stats. But
I mean, that whole receiving crew,
Yeah.
right? Gary Clark, Art Bunk.
it's not T.J. Sanders. What was the first name of the
Ricky Sanders.
Ricky Sanders. Thank you. Knew it was Sanders. That's
Trey
a good pick.
Amos.
It's a good pick for the Commanders. That is a good
player.
pick. I thought he was an early second-round guy. That's a good get for them right there.
All right, so that's 61. So
We are 3 picks away.
three
That's
picks
it. We're
away.
getting close.
Jalen Knoll still available. Caleb Johnson still available.
Cam Scatterbo still available.
You know, there was a run on tight ends there too for a little bit. I tell you, I think if we could have got one of those tight ends too, that's good for the offense.
Yeah, Harold Fannon's still on the board, but I'm not sure if that would be where the Giants would go here. He is a good move tight end. I think right now, of all the players we talked about, Darius Alexander, Jalen Knoll, and Caleb Johnson would be the guys that I have the highest on my board that are left. So I think those are interesting guys to talk about. We're going to take your calls, by the way. If you want to get in, guys, before the Giants make their pick, you can do that at 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. I know, Sean, there's something you wanted to say, unless, Paul, you have something else on the guys left.
No,
before I go
that's
to
okay.
Sean.
Go ahead.
I saw you shuffling your papers. I wasn't sure if you were ready
I'm just shuffling.
to
Yeah,
go somewhere.
I'm sure there's some callers out there wanting to, we should, maybe take another quarterback, right? Everybody's still talking about Shador.
I think the bigger question is that if I made an everyday you're shuffling reference, if Paul would know where that came from, I would say probably not. That is from like 15 years ago now, but I think it had to be for 35 years ago for Paul to know what it is. Yeah, exactly, right? And anything? No, nothing?
No
Nothing?
idea.
No idea. Okay, well, it was worth a shot. All right, Sean, you had a point you wanted to make about the Giants' 2 draft picks yesterday, that you had a bit of a revelation on driving home last night in the wee hours of the evening that you wanted to say today.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a revelation, but just there was this feeling of euphoria that as I was driving home last night, and I was just kind of channeling the Giants fans that were in MetLife last night. And as they were driving home from MetLife, I was just thinking about how many times I've driven home that same drive in the last couple of years. Just kind of scratching my head, like, where are we headed? What's going on? Like a lot more questions than answered. And last night, for the first time in a long time, driving home, I started thinking about Giants fans, and I'm thinking, you know what? Like, they are so giddy right now. Like, getting Jackson Dart, getting Abdul Carter, a player on each side of the ball that could completely change the trajectory of this franchise for the next 5 to 10 years. Like, that's got to be something that's resonating with every Giants fan. When you woke up this morning, when you were driving home last night, you're talking to your friends. I mean, I'm sure you guys are all getting text messages. I can't remember the last time that the Giants, as a franchise, had this much good happen to them in one night. And I think, look, as a former NFL player, I never looked at draft picks like, man, they're going to come in and save us, or they're going to come in and now we're going to win the Super Bowl because of this guy we just drafted.
And by the way, Abdul Carter maybe, but let's not put a cape on Jackson Dart, who's going to not even, as Brian Dable said it yesterday, is not even going to start right away.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think that's where it's kind of like, all right, I'm saying this because I'm extrapolating it over the next few years.
Correct.
Like,
that's fair.
projecting it as to what this could look like, this franchise, in the next 3 to 4 years.
If it works out as they envision it.
And we could very well look back and say, wow, you know what, that night, the fact that they were able to get Abdul Carter and get back into the first round and get Jackson Dart completely altered the direction of the franchise. And I think that's huge. And I think that's what the draft is all about. It's all about the potential of changing your team, the potential of assembling some stud players. And I think the thing about Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter, not just their talent, not just their performance on the field, their production on the field, that the quality of guys that they got. I think these two guys, they care about football first and foremost.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They're not looking to be celebrities. They don't want to be on page 6. They're not coming here because of their social media and their brand and they're trying to grow it. They're coming here and they're all business. They can't wait to get to work. Anybody that talked to Abdul Carter throughout that process knows that he's all business. And, you know, I think he thinks a lot of what he can bring to the table. He already asked for Lawrence Taylor's number, which
I don't know. I don't think he asked for it.
I think that was more tongue in cheek.
I don't think he asked for it.
I think
that
he
was
said
not legit.
I think he said I have other ideas, and
Yeah, it wasn't
56 is
legit.
coming to mind because it's a great number. I don't think
knows.
He didn't legitimately ask for it, but he said 56.
Are you trying to turn Paul against the Giants' third overall pick? Because the minute you mention someone in LT in the same sentence, Paul gets very upset.
Well, no, Paul would be upset if he asked for Pepper Johnson's.
You know, well, to be honest with you, earlier today when he was asked about that at his media session,
he handled that very well.
He handled it extremely well, and said,
I think it was
we'll
a
figure it
respectful
out.
thing.
Well, I think he saw you in a 3-point stance off the side of the stage, ready to charge up there if he didn't answer it properly.
He's not. I can't see there's any way that anybody is getting 56.
No, and I don't think he's getting 11 either, by the way. So
yeah, but just to put a bow on that whole conversation, the draft is all about hope. You know,
it's about hope. You took the word I was going to say. The draft is about hope.
This is about hope for your franchise. And you know what? Like, okay, we got some guys that, you know what, we can get back into that. We're headed in the right direction. And look, Joe Shane has been a piñata, you know, for Giants fans for the last couple of years. And as a general manager, like, he knows it. He's like, look, that's part of the job is to, you know, look, when things aren't going well, you're going to take the heat and take the blame. But I think you've also got to give him credit when he does a good job. And last year's draft, unbelievable production. And now when you see what he just did in one night, I think it gave a lot of hope. And I think that there are a lot of positives that came out of that. So now they got to go out and perform. But I thought that was this could be a big shift for the franchise and for the fans.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think this is even more of a reason for, and a lot of Giant fans have been in the tank for the draft pick mode. This is an even bigger reason now to try to, you know, really hope this team wins a lot of games this year. You know, because if this is a quarterback that Brian Daboll wanted to develop, you want to keep that connection together, right? And I think you get that by having significant improvement and have them winning a lot of football games. So I think it makes this
the last thing you want is Baker Mayfield
from a win-loss perspective,
new offensive coordinator,
or
new
Daniel
coach.
Jones. So just go back to all these, or Sam Darnold, or Geno Smith. Go to all these high-drafted quarterbacks that's taking a while to develop, or they've never developed. It's because there's a lot of instability earlier in their career. So it's important to try to keep that stable moving forward.
No, I think, you know, the fact that he's coming here, and by the way, Jackson Dart himself was extremely professional and well composed when he addressed the New York media.
And we had the press conference to say, the reason I didn't bring it up, Paul, because both guys were so solid and didn't say anything that I thought was worth noting. I just didn't think there was much to talk about there, to be honest with you.
They both handled themselves as professional.
Yeah, they were great.
And quite honestly, I didn't expect anything else because, you know, we met Dart at the Combine, John, and he passed all the tests with flying colors in terms of his personality, his presence, his smarts.
Yeah, and I even talked to him
really smooth.
I talked to him in a small scrum at the Senior Bowl, and he was the same deal right after a practice, right? And sometimes the guys are a little bit more, don't have their guard up as much right on the field after a practice because they're not thinking about, all right, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to mentally prepare for this. You're kind of just getting them.
Yeah.
And both him and Tyler Shuck, for that matter, both those guys were very put together on the practice field at the Senior Bowl. We've had 2 defensive tackles, by the way, go off the board here, which is significant for the Giants. Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, he goes off the board to the Chiefs. Boy, you put him next to Chris Jones on.
That's a really nice pick.
Look down.
Spags will love it.
And then the pick before that, the Bears, who need some pass rush, they get Shamar Turner, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. So if you wanted a 3-technique pass rusher type, and that's what those guys are, really, Darius Alexander is really your last guy left that I have with a relatively high grade on them. So if you want a plugger, there's still some guys, but you're running low on 3 techs.
Darius
so keep that in mind.
He's still there.
Yeah,
right?
I think he would be the one guy that's left.
He's it.
And the thing about Alexander, he looks like a really good player. He was really good at the Senior Bowl, but he's a 5-year player. He's almost 25 years old, and he didn't have a lot of production playing in the MAC at Toledo. So that's something that I think raises a red flag for some people, but he was really good against Power 5 guys at the Senior Bowl. They couldn't really block him up front. So I think you take that into consideration as well. All right, I see a couple calls. So the Giants are now 2 picks away. The Eagles are up. Their pick is in, which means the Giants' pick is probably in 2, but the TV continues to be. The network is behind where the picks are. So we'll try to squeeze in a couple picks here, a couple of calls, rather, before we get to the pick. Let's go to Peter down in the Florida Keys. Peter, you're up here on the Giants Draft Reaction Show presented by Crestron and the Hack and Sack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. Stop laughing at me, Pearson. What's going on, Peter? I got it right this time. Peter, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
We're good.
Hey, thank you so much for doing this.
Yep.
I didn't even know you guys are still on, so I just randomly called the number I memorized, and I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, we've been on for 50 hours straight, actually.
Oh, my God.
Well, Paul has in his own head. We've actually slept.
Sorry, did you say you have the
guys
number
are on.
memorized? Is
He's
it
a
not-
regular caller.
It's not just in your cell phone.
Damn
It's not
right.
Like you just press it, right? Are you actually having to press the numbers on? Are you
No,
on-
I memorized it.
All right.
Yeah,
You're not on a rotary,
I
right?
can save it in there, but whatever.
You're not on a landline, are you?
No. It's dial-up, I'm using the modem stuff. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So, kids don't know. Kids don't know what that's like.
Stop. Oh, my God. You're blowing my ears out. All right, Peter, what do you got on the draft? What do you got?
Two quick things. Who are you guys really hoping for that we pick in the next couple? I have in the two picks. I'm actually looking for Sampson or Knoll. Those are my two hopes that we could scoop up the running back or a wide receiver.
I'd be happy with either one of those guys. I think Darius Alexander has to be in the conversation here, too.
Yeah.
I think Caleb Johnson and Cam Scatterbo, I think they're both also very, very good players. So I think any of that group I'd be pretty happy with. Paul?
I feel it's got to be the trenches or power running back. I cannot take a wide receiver here.
Gotcha.
Sean, how about you?
Yeah, you like Dylan Sampson, running back from Tennessee.
I love him.
There's
RJ Harvey.
There's some
I would
tackles
hope-
out there too. I mean, we were talking before about, Marcus Imbell from Purdue is out there. Charles Grant is out there. Dylan Fairchild he's the other guard from Georgia. I think if you get a guard or a tackle here in the third round, I mean, that could potentially be a guy that could end up starting for you for the next 4 to 5 years. I think that could be solid too.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Hey,
I
but
think
look.
we did really well. Super excited about the first round.
Yeah, look, I will say this. I appreciate it, Peter, and thanks a lot for the call. Look, I think Darius Robinson, for me, I have a pure round 2 grade. He's the only defensive tackle left with a pure round 2 grade. In fact, I only have 2 other guys with, end of round 2 grades on them. So that's the guy that, to me, that's sticking out like a sore thumb in terms of depth at a position of need for me. I still think there's a bunch of wide receivers that are really good that are on the board and a bunch of running backs. So that's where I would look, Paul. Darius Alexander for me, at least.
I mean, I don't think there's any doubt, there's still quality at the positions the Giants are thin at. And I mentioned my guys before, Farmer, I mentioned Scatterbo, I mentioned Mabel. There are guys who you can get right now who are going to compete and push people on your depth chart. And that's the important thing, because remember, especially now, I mean, we're talking the start of the third round. You need somebody who's going to push. Okay? It's not just like, can he make the roster? No. The guy's got to be able to push. He's got to be able to compete if you're taking him at the start of the third round. Well, that's the key.
The Eagles just replaced Chauncey Gardner-Johnson with another undersized safety.
Yeah.
This guy's a missile. He's a lot of fun to watch. Andrew Makuba, he's just under 200 pounds. He makes plays on the ball. He's like shot out of a cannon. I had a better grade on Xavier Watts than him, but he is a really, really good player. And
downhill safety.
Yeah, but he has ball production, man. That guy makes plays on the football. That's not going to be fun going up against him.
No,
for
let me get this
years.
straight. The NFL's number 1 ranked defense last year just added the linebacker, Jahad Campbell, and Mukuba.
Yeah.
Mukuba.
Mukuba.
All right, so
That's right.
we need some offensive firepower here. Considering all what we're just talking about with Philly, we need some offensive talent here.
All right, Giants are up here, guys. And, again, I think Makuba's a good pick there. The 3 highest guys on my board just in terms of ranking are Savon Ravel. I really like him as a corner, but he's hurt, and the Giants don't even need a corner, so I'll push him aside. Right 2 spots away from him, and actually I have Jalen Noel and Darius Alexander touching. They're players 41 and 42 for me. Noel's at 41, and Darius Alexander is at 42. So I'd be more than happy with the value you would get at one of those 2 guys. And again, I just think defensive tackle is more of a need here, guys. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take a guess and say it's Darius Alexander.
That'd be a really good pick. Again, Farmer's a little bit of a different style of guy, but if you want defensive tackle with him, Alexander's a really good pick too.
Jason Sehorn is going to be announcing the pick for the Giants today.
Nice.
I don't know if that's sending a message. They've had a lot of the guys actually at the same position as the picks, so I'm not sure if they've announced these guys a long time ago, but now they brought out, it looks like, service members from each one of the services out there. Roger Goodell shaking some hands. And,
yeah, it was
we'll
pretty
Jason
cool.
Sehorn out.
The Rams did their draft picks from the LA Fire Department. Or isn't that where they were?
And this is the end of the second round. Since the Giants had the first pick in round 3, that's probably why they're doing this.
Yeah.
So you have all the services here. I wanted to see what the Space Force uniform looked like, because usually they do bring out someone from the Space Force now because they are one of the services. I think that might have been the uniform at the end. I couldn't tell. They didn't give me a good wide shot.
By the way, did you like that story about the Giants' 2 first-round picks who wear different face paintings to mimic Star Wars characters?
Yes, so...
interesting.
Yeah, Abdul Carter with the Darth Vader on the eye black, because I guess he spent a lot of time in one of those hyperbaric chambers heading into that bowl game against Notre Dame where he, had the shoulder injury. And obviously Darth Vader gets submerged
Indeed he does.
in the Bacta tank to heal with all the burns and all that stuff. And then
So was he watching all the movies while he was in the hyperbaric chamber? Is that how he became a Star Wars
that's
fan?
actually a
That's
good
what I
question.
thought you were
don't know.
going
Maybe he
with
could
that.
have been. I don't know if
Did
he
they
was
have such a
Like,
type
I've
with a
spent
screen?
a lot of time in the hyperbaric chamber.
I think he felt like Darth Vader in the hyperbaric chamber.
Probably.
And then apparently Jackson Dart has the one streak of eye black because of the Anakin Skywalker scar. So I guess we need like a big Yoda fan now, or maybe a big Obi-Wan fan, something like that.
Let's just hope the Force is strong with both of them. But I think, can we...
And we also hope the Force is going to be strong with the Giants' next selection.
Like, I love it. Okay, that's great. That's in their free time. They're
You want to keep it in the
they love
Skywalker
Star Wars,
family,
but
apparently.
like the last thing that I want to tell a team and these fans, like the minute I get drafted, is like, I'm a Trekkie. Like, what are we doing here?
Fairness,
Like,
you would rather be a Star Wars fan than a Trekkie.
yeah, okay, but like, I
In
like,
fairness.
I mean, all right, it's a little bit out there, but yeah, sure. I mean, I think it works out great. Darth Vader, the dark side. You're on defense.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but Paul wanted to find a pop
fits.
culture reference that he could relate to, and I think that's where we got.
You remember John Randall with the Vikings who wore that purple, deep purple shield inside his helmet, and he looked like somebody from Darth Vader's side of the Force.
Giants.
I am a big Chewie fan.
Here we go.
Well, you're an offensive
I will
lineman.
say
We've had way too many sound effects on this show today.
I mean, that's as far as I'll go with the Star Wars stuff. But I don't think things ended well with Anakin, right?
Well, I mean,
Hey!
he became Darth.
about that?
If there are kids out there listening that haven't seen the movies, I don't want to ruin it for them. Spoilers
right.
from like 1981. And the Giants pick is in. It is Darius Alexander, defensive tackle
look at you,
out of
Johnny.
Toledo.
Johnny on the spot.
Goodness.
Occasionally I get one.
Wow, look at that.
Thank
highlight.
goodness.
Snatched that.
Somebody in the trenches.
All right.
That's a nice pick.
So let me
gotta
give you.
rock it.
I'm going to give you the details here on Darius Alexander. All right, he's out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. He's going to turn 25 years old in August. Just under 6'4" at the combine. He measured it at 6'037". That's 6'3 and 7/8", 305 pounds, 34-inch arm, Sean.
Yes.
Nice.
And that's at the combine where they were measuring all the arms short, so he was probably closer to 34 and a half. He had 7.5 sacks for Toledo last year, 5.5 the year before, 22 career sacks. He was, again, in school. He played for 5 years, had a 6th year that was a redshirt year back in 2019. That's why he's a little bit of an older prospect. Jumped 31 inches, broad jump over 9 foot. So pretty good athletic testing numbers as well, just a bit of an older prospect. But he is your long, athletic, knifing, upfield type of pass rusher that I think will fit very nicely next to Dexter Lawrence. Throw Chauncey Golston into that mix there as well as a potential pass rushing 3 technique with Abdul Carter. Let me tell you, this Giants defensive line is young, with promise, and they're impressive.
You know what, John? We're looking at a possibility now. If you were to put Alexander in the 3 technique spot next to Dexter, you could have Golston playing the edge as the hold the edge and setting the edge against the run as a defensive end. You don't even have to move Golston. You could play him next to Alexander on the outside edge.
Yeah, I mean, but then you got to take Burns, Thibodeau, or Abdul Carter off the field.
Again, but I'm saying it gives you some options.
Yes, it does, absolutely.
Especially if it's going to be against the run, because we know that Abdul Carter at the beginning is going to be more of a pass rusher than he will be on obvious run stopping downs. I think this is a real healthy pick. Alexander has a lot of, as you said, athletic tools in his toolbox. He's got a lot of moves and a lot of tricks up his sleeve. He can do a lot of things to escape and to shed guys. And next to Dexter, that's going to be a real headache for people.
And again, I watched him at the Senior Bowl close up, and he just has the body of a defensive lineman that looks like is going to be successful in the league for a long time. Sean, let me ask you this.
There were some people that said that he had some flashes of Leonard Williams, who the Giants
I don't think he's
picked up from the Jazz, traded to
big
Seattle.
and strong as
No,
Leonard is, but in terms of length,
Leonard
yes.
Williams was a long-armed guy.
Correct.
And, that was one of the biggest things. Him coming out of USC, all of his highlights, he was just
Long-arming
ragdolling.
guys, yeah.
He had so much
It was
more
like
power,
watching
though,
the Three Stooges.
Sean. More power, I think, Leonard.
When
Leonard
Curly
had.
would hold him back there. But as soon as you mention long arms, that's one of the things as an offensive lineman,
I was going to ask you that question.
you would
Yeah.
literally, you watch film, you're like, dude, this guy's got go-go edge in arms. Like JPP was one of those guys where it was like, you can't, you just felt like you were waving your hands in the air, trying to block him. So if you get a guy with long arms that uses his hands really well, it's really tough. I mean, it makes life really challenging as an offensive lineman trying to get to that guy. So, it's interesting because they're talking about him. He's a penetrator.
Yep.
Right? So you get a guy with long arms like that that is the penetrator. That's tough. That's somebody that's disrupting things in the A gap, knifing through, and to couple that with Dexter Lawrence. Look, this defense, it's obvious that the Giants came out of this past season and said, look, we've got to get more physical up front. We've got to get faster and get more explosive. Abdul Carter, and now with Darius Alexander, I think they accomplished that. I think when you look at the fact that he went to Toledo, like you said, so maybe he's a little bit raw. He's still got some things he's got to learn. I think Dre Patterson is got to be so happy right now. He's grinning ear to ear.
Sean.
Dre Patterson, I've known him back when I was in Cleveland. He has coached some of the best defensive linemen to have ever played in this game.
And what is
He is phenomenal at teaching these guys how to get better with their hands, the techniques, add some moves to their pass rush repertoire. He's a heck of a coach. So
I'm sorry for jumping on you, but the one thing that, and he's told this to me, that Andre Patterson values is length. He likes
You can't
players
coach
that
that.
are long. He talked about that with Dexter Lawrence. I was talking to the other day. Roy Robertson Harris, the other defensive tackle they brought in, he's got 35-inch arms.
Yeah.
He was excited about him as a player. So, he's a guy that I think can play really well.
one of the things I noticed about Brian Burns the first time I saw him too, super long arms.
Yep.
Like he
Same
could tie
thing.
his shoes standing straight up.
All right, so I'm gonna. This was my summary on Darius Alexander. Then we're gonna bring in Bob Papa here. These are my notes. Strong, long, athletic defensive tackle from a small school that flashed dominance on tape but lacked dominant production. Raw pass rush relying mostly on length, strength, and athleticism with potential to grow despite being an older prospect. Very strong run defender who uses length well to get off of blocks.
Got it.
That's what I saw from watching him.
I like your opening line. Strong, long, bound to get the friction on. I think there's a song.
What is that from?
I'm not going to sing it. You guys can,
I'm just trying to get you into trouble. I think I understand where you were going with that, John.
Bound to get the friction on. So
Yeah,
I think
stop,
it's-
please.
I think it's the
Let's be less.
Oh,
I think we should welcome
boy.
in Bob Papa, who wants to talk about the Giants pick in round number 3. Bob, how you doing, buddy?
Good. I'm surprised Sean didn't throw in a random 1998 movie reference. with
You
that
mess that actually. We already did
yeah.
that.
We did the Eastbound and Down thing. Schmeelk's not a fan. Paul's never heard of it.
Oh, unless it's Godfather 1, Paul hasn't heard of it. So
Well, Paul did make a Star Wars reference, so it was a movie from the 70s, just the wrong one, Bob.
all right, Darius Alexander, right? Defensive tackle. John, I heard all the things that you said. I talked to a bunch of people independently that were down at the Senior Bowl. They were really intrigued. Obviously, he didn't come from a major program, but I think, you just keep adding depth on that defensive front, right? I mean, you got Nacho, you've got Roy Robertson, Harris. I mean, you're adding all these pieces. You bring some youth into it because, let's face it, some of the guys that they've brought in the last couple of years, I don't know if they've distinguished themselves. So I like it. I really thought the Giants might go running back here because of some of the players that were on the board.
Yeah, me too.
And I really still feel like they got to upgrade the running back room. I'm sure they can get one in the 4th round because Gray has been unimpressive to this point. But, yeah, I mean, I like the pick. I like the fact that clearly he must have been the best player on their board, because it's not an area in which you would be drafting from a need standpoint. Still no O-lineman, Sean, which is kind of interesting, but
Yeah.
I think they're trying to hold true to their board at this point.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there was definitely a couple of tackles that I'm sure that they were kind of looking at, but again, like you said, they're going based on the grade, and you know what? Maybe they had a late third round. I mean, it's one thing to have a third round pick on a guy. This was the first pick of the third round, so like essentially, it's if you had a second round grade on a guy, that's who you're going to take.
You ideally want to pick a second round grade
Right.
with the
You're
first pick
not,
of the third
like
round.
if you have a third round grade on somebody, you want to take him in late in the third round. Now you feel like, all right, you're getting somebody that with better value, or even in the fourth, top of the fourth.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of the Wellington Mara story that we told last night. I mean, Lance Zierlein from NFL.com and numerous others have a second round grade on this guy. So, they might have been debating over people in the third round, and, someone might have stood in front of the electronic board and said, well, wait a second. We got a second round grade on this guy. So they took him. Again, I don't have a problem drafting when you have a position of strength. If he's the best player on your board, it's a meritocracy. Let the best man win. And if you were drafted a couple of years ago at that same position and you haven't done much, well, guess what? You're going to get your butt kicked by somebody new coming in that's better than you, or earn your keep.
Yeah.
So,
and Bob, you know what? Like you
fine.
mentioned, he's coming in, and you said, get some fresh legs, get some young talent. Look, the Giants brought in Jeremiah Ledbetter, D-tackle from Jacksonville. You mentioned Roy Robertson Harris, but they also, Chauncey Golston, I don't think we talked about him as well. So this D-line room, like they're going to have to add some chairs to that D-line room.
No, it's stacked.
That thing is loaded.
Yeah.
We might be running a 5-3 defense.
It needed to be.
It needed to be. You're right, Paul, because last year they couldn't stop the run to save their lives, and they couldn't stop the run in 2023 to save their lives. We remember the hiring of Bowen and Dable saying, he's good against the run. Well, they weren't good against the run last year. So that's right. You throw bodies at it. I kind of almost look at Golston as like a 3-4 pass rushing end more than that run stuffer. But
yeah,
they got a lot of bodies in here. Competition is good. It's a meritocracy at the end of the day. You're not tied into a ton of money to anybody. So,
except Brian
let the
Burns.
best man win.
Yes.
And, maybe the other thing is get to the end of camp, or you get somewhere in camp, and suddenly you spin one of these guys off in a trade. Not one of the guys they drafted.
I think it's important to remember that just yesterday when we talked to Joe Shane, he spoke of how important it was for him to hold on to pick number 65 when he made the trade to go up into the first round to get Jackson Dart. He said the 65 was incredibly important to him. He wasn't moving that pick. He moved the 99 instead in that deal. Probably cost him that third rounder next year. But in his mind, he must have believed that he was going to get a bona fide, serious player in this slot. So I feel very good about his intent and what it is that he probably put into making the selection.
Well, he was probably also thinking that some of these quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe still hasn't been drafted. While everybody's on Shador watch, which, the NFL has now spoken, all 32 teams have spoken twice.
Yep.
And, it's not, people are like, just think about the Giants fans that were calling in to BBK and on my podcast and on my Sirius XM NFL radio show that were talking about tanking for Shador, and the Giants might have blown it by winning an extra game, and now they can't get Shador. Well, Shador is in the third. We're in the third round right now. He hasn't been taken. So the NFL scouts, GMs, personnel people, and NFL coaching staffs that have gotten their eyes on him view him as a backup with maybe the potential to be a part-time starter. Nobody views him as a first-run starting quarterback in the NFL, right? And the league has spoken. Here's where we are. So I think, when you take a look at all of this, and Paul, you talked about not wanting to surrender that first pick of the third round. Guys get pushed down the board when quarterbacks go. Then teams have some people off their board that others don't. So Joe Schoen didn't want to give up this pick because it's basically a second-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a player with a second-round grade when you have the first pick of the third round.
Sure.
Bob, good stuff, my friend. Any parting words before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I think if you're a Giants fan, you have to be really impressed and you have to be very happy by what the team has done thus far. Hopefully they add some O-line. Hopefully they add a running back in here somewhere along the way. But, I think the Giants, there's a feeling amongst Giants fans of immense optimism right now. Not that they're going to necessarily knock the Eagles off and win the division or whatever, but that the Giants are going to be relevant. And they're going to be competitive. And we're going to get to December based on what they've done defensively and the other moves that they've made. And we're going to get to December, and the Giants are going to be in the conversation with, well, if we win this one and that one and this happens, we got a chance to get a wild card spot. And I think that's all fans want to see at this point in time. Yeah, we won Super Bowls and championships, but after what people have been through, just stay relevant. Just be in the mix. And if it doesn't go, then all right, here's the little touch-up we need moving forward. But I think fans have been, gotten tired of being eliminated by Halloween or Thanksgiving. And I think there's a real energy with the Giant fan base right now.
Thank you, Bob Papa. Bob Papa, voice of the Giants. Hopefully we'll see you up here soon, Bob. Enjoy the rest of your golf tournament, my friend.
You'll see me on Tuesday.
Can't wait to see you, Bob
All
Papa.
right, Bob. Be good.
BP.
There's Bob Papa, the voice of the Giants, joining us right here on the Giants Draft Reaction Show, brought to you by Crestron. Shaun O'Hara has to depart here. Darius Alexander is waiting for him. You could talk about how he can use his long arms to keep you off of his coffee, all right?
I'll make sure he doesn't touch me.
That's it.
Well, his arms are so long, you might be able to reach through the Zoom. So that would be pretty impressive if he can do that. All right, I'm going to slide over here, Paul, so we can get a little. Is that all right, Pearson? Can I slide over for the camera? All right.
We have a comment from Dan Salomon, who's at Joe Shane's presser.
Oh, what does he got?
He says that Alexander's a 3 technique that we know, did a lot of work on him. They felt they needed to add some youth to the offensive line, had a really good week with him at the Senior Bowl. You know that, you were there. He can develop with the depth they have on the roster. Quote, high ceiling, unquote, for Alexander.
That's what I said too, and I'm gonna read Dane Brugler's description of him. Then James in Georgia, I know you've been holding a long time. We will get to you in just a second. This was Dane Brugler's summary in The Beast on Darius Alexander, which I had not read until now, and it sounds a lot like mine, to be honest with you. Overall, Alexander isn't yet the full sum of his parts, but his blend of power, length, and athletic body control give him the makings of a 3-down, scheme-versatile NFL starter. He projects best in an attacking role where he'd be able to maximize his disruptive traits. His peak plays are reminiscent of Leonard Williams.
Traits has a lot of really good ones.
Yep, absolutely. All right, 201-939-4513. Guys, we're going to go for about a little under 20 more minutes here, and we'll take your calls reacting to the Giants pick. If you want to talk to us about Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart, we can, of course, do that as well. So let's go to James in Georgia. He's been hanging out with us the longest. James, what's going on, pal?
Hey, what's going on? I appreciate y'all taking my phone call again today.
Yes, sir.
I know John was talking earlier about, I asked you about prospects, and you ran off a list, so I'm pretty sure you probably named Alexander.
Oh, I definitely did.
Yeah, he was in there.
Okay.
I didn't think he'd make it, to be honest with you.
What happened?
I didn't think Alexander would last that long.
Okay.
He's a good player.
Yeah, I like the pick. Love the pick. I think they're doing a great job in the draft so far. I was just going to ask a couple of questions, like how is his run stopping like good for the conference he played in? Is he a decent run stopper? Does he fit what we need on this team? And then I just got 2 more after that.
He sheds very well. That's what we were talking about before, about traits and tools.
Because of his length.
Yes. So he can counter. He can use moves to beat guys right off the snap. Yes, absolutely. Now, he's more of a 3 technique. He's a penetrator. All right, he's going to come off the ball, and he's not going to anchor and just plug a gap. That's not what he does. He attacks. He's a downhill guy.
He's not like a snacks run stuff.
No.
No. Think more Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is the second year our coaches coached in the All-Star games, and I'm not sure if one of our coaches, because I know we sent a lot of offensive guys, actually got hands-on with Alexander.
Andre Patterson was not down there, so we did not have anyone down there with him. I don't recall.
Nor was Brian Cox either. No.
But that's been all the guys that we've been drafting, like I said, especially the last 2 years that we've got a lot of exposure to. They've been working out so far.
Well, that's the idea. The league does that on purpose, right? They go to the teams that had a difficult season, and they say, okay, let's get some of these guys on the staffs of these All-Star games. They want to try to give them at least some flavor and taste of those prospects so they can have a better chance of trying to get better players to improve the parity and the balance of the league.
And the mediocrity, right?
Well, James, I'm going to let you say that tonight. I'm trying to be nice. Okay?
Right.
So,
I just got two more things, because Shaun was just talking about like the front we would start to run, or we could run with packages. So I'm going to ask both of mine and then get off. A 5-2-4, what would that look like? Who would you put in there? And would it actually I know it would probably work, but how would you make it work? And at this point, going back to Bob's point, and I know a lot of us have called in the past before, and we were on board with taking 2 shots at quarterback. Now, this was before we signed 2 in the offseason. A lot of people were calling about, and I was one who would take 2 swings at quarterback in this draft, and I would take a swing at Shedeur in the 4th, because you're not losing anything at that point if he falls that far. And
James, there isn't any room for him on the roster.
Well, I mean, you'd have to cut Tommy. You'd have to let Tommy DeVito go.
Well, not just Tommy. You'd have to let Jameis Winston go.
To bring in a 4. Well, because then
you can't have 4.
That's not going to work.
Door on the what's it called? The practice squad.
No,
you don't get scooped quick.
Correct. So I'm not. James, appreciate the call. I don't think that's going to work. So I looked it up, by the way. So, Joel Thomas, who was the Giants running back coach, he went back to the Saints since then. He was the offensive coordinator for Jackson Dart at the Senior Bowl. So I do wonder if the Giants, if he still talked to the Giants about that and whether or not he got some good feedback to them on Dart in terms of what he did at the Senior Bowl. Shane Bowen coached the national team. I'm going to check which team Darius Alexander was on.
The only thing I was going to say about Dart is with all of the multiple connections the Giants had, I don't know how much more information they needed about him, but I think it's still a good point.
Yeah, so Alexander was on Bowen's team at the Senior Bowl.
Oh, he was?
So Bowen was. He was the head coach, not the defensive coordinator, obviously. But that's someone you can keep your eye on there, as someone that he was exposed to while he was down there.
Look, if you're at practice, you can still see practice habits, even if it's not necessarily a position coach.
Oh, absolutely.
You still know what's going on.
And I'm sure he got reports from the guys that were working on him.
So good point that you brought up.
Yeah, very good point, James. Appreciate the call. 201-939-4513.
I do have one YouTube question if you guys.
Oh, yeah, what do you got, Pearson,
please?
Just
asking what this means for Chapman, if this moves him down the depth chart, if he's a rotational guy.
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
I think he's got to fight for a job. It's competition. That's what it is for him.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Paul. I'm an idiot. Shane Bowen was one of the head coaches at Shrine this year.
Okay,
Kafka
I forgot.
Was the head coach at Senior Bowl. I had those two reversed. Yeah, Senior Bowl's the national team head coach was Mike Kafka. So, again, not on the defensive side, but he was there on the same roster
Somebody
as
in the
Darius
building
Alexander,
who was present.
Yes.
That's the best way to go about it. I forgot. I'm so fried right now.
No, I know.
The last 3 months that we've done.
Well, I remember who was there. I just didn't remember who was on what team. And I don't have the notes in front of me. So.
As far as Chapman, it's competition. It's just that simple. It's competition. Whoever was on this roster, especially if you were not a starter, okay, especially those guys, you've got to fight now. You've got to really fight for your job come August. And there's nothing wrong with that, because may the best man win. That's how you get better. You have multiple competitions at multiple positions, and every guy who wins is supposed to make that position better. Nothing wrong with that, John.
All right, so we have Kyle Williams. By the way, I should update since the Giants picked Alexander.
Yes.
Ashton Gillott went to the Chiefs. Very good edge player. They're really strengthening their trenches there. They picked an offensive lineman, a defensive tackle, and an edge player. Good players, too. Browns took tight end Harold Fannin Jr. Not sure how that works with Njoku up there.
That's really interesting.
But maybe they're going to go to a lot of 12 personnel. I guess they could do
suppose.
that. Darian Porter. Al Davis selecting guys with great testing. Very Raiders type of pick there. Then you had Kyle Williams go to the New England Patriots. They finally select the wide receiver and a pretty good one as well. Though going ahead of Jalen Noel is surprising. I don't know why he's dropping so much, man. Maybe I've been wrong on receivers before. Vernon Broughton to the New Orleans Saints, the Texas. He's a run-stuffing defensive tackle type. Bills at 72 selected Landon Jackson. He's a good, powerful edge run stuffer type.
He is.
So I think that's a nice pick for them. And then the Jets just picked Florida State cornerback Azare Thomas. So he'll be a good bump and run player for them. Remember, that's the scheme that Aaron Glenn wants to run. He wants to be a up-in-your-face, bump-and-run type of defensive coordinator, and that's what Azare Thomas does as a big, powerful, rangy type of cornerback. So I think good pick there. All right, let's get back to the phones. Marcus in Rochester is up next. Marcus, what's happening, man?
Hey, what's up, man? How y'all?
Hi.
Yeah, I wanted to say it, man, to the Giants fans. I think we're doing a great job what we're doing right now. We picking need and value. And it's matching both areas we need. And definitely with the Jackson Dart, I like that pick. I like all the picks we making. And I'm going to be a head coach in college down in North Carolina. So I just got this one thing to say to Joe Shane. When you start listening to the fans, you're going to start sitting with the fans. So, just keep doing what you're doing. And that's it.
No, appreciate the call, Marcus. And look, Joe Shane's not no NFL team's going to operate that way, right?
No.
So I think you're absolutely right. Follow your process. Trust the way you do things. Pick the guys that you think are the best. And that's it. That's how you need to operate if you want to be a successful franchise. So,
There's a lot of outside noise in New York. It gets really loud.
Yeah.
But Joe Shane is good at blocking it out.
yeah, so far that's for sure. As the Giants have picked some pretty good value guys here in this drafting, including trading up to get a quarterback that they hope can develop into a franchise guy. Dean is in Minnesota. He's up next. Hi, Dean.
Yeah, hi. How you doing, guys?
We're great. What do you got?
I have my thought about Shadou Sanders, why he hasn't been drafted, and I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but I feel like coaches of all these teams might be worried about their job security if they draft Sanders, because chances are his dad might become the team coach the following year.
Dean, if I may, and I'm going to be very nice and polite about this, what everybody reads in the media, whether it's in the papers, whether it's on the radio, or whether it's on television, is media. It's not the real scouting reports. There are times, and I know some people find this very hard to believe, but the teams who spend millions of dollars to have dozens of scouts who scour these games around the country, bleed, sweat, tears, all kinds of work that they put in for expensive pieces of research. They know what they're doing a heck of a lot better than the folks who are draft gurus. Not that I don't want to disrespect those guys, but they're not spending millions of dollars sending people across the country every day, leaving their families for weeks and months at a time, okay? Sometimes the hype that you read in the media gives you a very false sense of the value of a player. And maybe that's exactly what's just happened here.
Well, and look, and even if you talk, all the guys I had leading up to the draft, not one person I had on the Giants Huddle podcast told me he was a top 15 player, top 10 player.
You're right.
They didn't. They had him as like a second-round type of quarterback. And based on what people were hearing going into this, about half the league had Sanders ahead of Dart and vice versa, right? It was kind of a coin flip as to which one would go first. It turned out Dart went first. And then Tyler Shook, we've talked about him. His tape was probably just this year better than any other quarterback's tape. It was, except for Cam Ward. Like, that's how good he looked at Louisville this year. Now you have the age and injuries and all that stuff. And then look, there's stuff that goes along with Shedeur Sanders. It just is. I mean, look at all the attention he's getting for not being drafted. What happens if, he's not a guy that was going to go in there and start right away. Much like Jackson Dart, he was going to need some seasoning. Mm-hmm. The minute he goes on your team, on your bench, the pressure's just going to build to play him if things don't go well.
Without a doubt.
So all those things go into the equation. Obviously, I'm not going to comment on the reports of the meetings and how those went at the combine and all that stuff. That's out there. You've heard it. I don't know if they're right or wrong, but they're out there. And look, you don't have that many teams that had picks that were in dire need of a quarterback. The Steelers passed on him. The Browns have now passed on him multiple times. Clearly, that's not a guy they wanted in Cleveland. Otherwise, they would have picked him by now. The Steelers are coming up here in about 10 selections. I think if he's still there, I think the Steelers would probably pick him in that spot. All the reports were that they were really in consideration with him in the first round. So if he's still there, I would imagine he would get picked at that selection if he's still on the board. So we'll have to wait and see when he gets picked. Dean, appreciate the call. But look, Dane Brugler had him in, I think, in the 30s on his big board. But look, quarterback is a very specific position to scout. You're either going to want the guy to be the leader of your team or you're not, based a lot on his personality. And look, that's just the way it is.
Some of the NFL people that we did talk to at the Combine, and we're talking about not media people, but NFL people, flat out said he's going to have to go to a place that's going to be conducive to all the things that he does do and covers up the stuff that he doesn't do well. He was going to need to go to a place with a really good offensive line, John.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We heard that. We heard that they were going to have a good run game as well. We heard that.
Yep.
We also heard that his receivers were going to have to be really special receivers who were going to be able to attack the ball and get open. We heard that too. Well, you're now asking about three pretty big boxes that have to be checked simultaneously. Not every team in the league can do that right now.
Don't disagree. 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Let's wrap things up. Our final call of the show. It's Len in Columbia, Maryland. Len, what's going on, pal?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
You must have been happy with Mr. Alexander, Len.
How about that? You know what, John? Once Williams went at the end of the first round, I thought to myself, well, we just pick Alexander at 34, and then, of course, we made the trade. But, yeah, I really wanted the guy. You said something the other day that was kind of interesting, John. You said you thought we might play a more traditional 3-4, at least on first and second down. And, boy, Alexander's perfect for that. 6'4", 305, perfect height and weight. Great pick. And, of course, we all know we were just going to pick a defensive tackle there. I mean, we had to take one. We're all tired of seeing us get gashed and complaining about it for the last 10 games of the season. And this is going to make a big difference. It's going to make a big difference. And the first two picks, I mean, what can you say? These are from as far back as January. It seemed like the plan was bridge quarterback and bring in a young quarterback in the draft. And they did just what they said they were going to do. And hopefully it works out with Dart. But hey, I think there was a mandate. I can't prove this, obviously, but I think there was a mandate. They had to get a quarterback. They had to pick a quarterback. I really believe that.
I think they wanted to pick a quarterback, Len. I don't think it was a mandate. If anything, it was a mandate from Joe Shane, where I think they wanted a young quarterback on the roster.
Last thing, in case you want to get another caller in here.
Len, just the other day, Joe Shane said to us it was... Len, hold on. Just the other day, Joe Shane said because of the two veteran quarterbacks he signed, it was not mandatory to draft a quarterback. He flat out told you right to your face.
Yeah, okay, Paul. Okay.
He did.
I got the sense, Paul, they wanted to pick a quarterback.
I think they wanted to, but when he says it wasn't mandatory, there's a difference between want to and mandatory.
Well, no, they weren't going to pick a quarterback they didn't like just for the sake of picking.
I just think as far back as January, the plan was you got to take a quarterback. You got to pick a quarterback.
Well, they got one, so who cares what the plan was in January? They got one. They got three, actually.
According to what I thought the plan was. I'm with that. One last thing. From as far back as January, I don't know, maybe this is obvious, but as far back as January, I felt like there was a sense of urgency for the first time.
Wow.
All the way back to the first draft they handled in 22. I just felt this year, again, this may be obvious, but I just felt there was an urgency there from the guys they were picking up during the season. I mean, it's been a great offseason, terrific offseason. We're right up to this draft, doing exactly what they said they were going to do, and just there was an urgency there to get it done. I like that. Go Giants. Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Thanks, Len.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. And I'm sure if you guys were watching, you saw my little pen flip there.
Let them know, John, because Jerry Jones is doing a dance on the TV just a second
Well,
ago.
he should be.
I know.
And and just folks, I said it when the Giants got the pick. Paul, who did I say was my highest graded player left on my board when the Giants came to pick?
Ravel, the East Carolina cornerback.
Well, guess who the Cowboys just took at pick number 76?
Come on. Speak of the devil.
Come on. Oh, man. Jeez. All right.
That's
we
good
have to
value
wrap
for them
that.
right
Is very
there.
good value for them right there. Which
Yep.
is I think the Eagles and the Commanders and the Cowboys have all done very well in this draft, and that does not make me happy.
Well, the whole division is.
Yeah, I know. I think and the Giants, I think, have done really well too. By the way, but just I'd rather have them do poorly and the Giants do well. But
no doubt.
It is what it is. All right, folks, we'll be back with you tomorrow. I think the plan is 11:30. Pearson, we're gonna come on. We'll take some calls before the pick. We'll get your reaction to what's happened so far. Come in, join us. It'll be fun. Don't worry about the one call a week rule. You can come in, call. We could have longer conversations. We're going to make an attempt to stay on to the 5th round pick. I don't know if we're going to make it, guys, but we will try. But we'll at least stay on for an hour at the very least until 1 o'clock. So we're going to go at least until 1 as long as we keep getting your calls. We're going to need them in order to do the show. So we would appreciate it if you join us. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. That's your Giants Draft Reaction Show presented by Crestron from the Hackensack Meridian Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. For Paul Dottino, great job by Pearson keeping us on the air the last couple of days, and we'll be back again tomorrow again at 11:30 on Saturday with more on the Giants and the NFL Draft. We'll see you then. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and the rest of the 3rd round.